Welcome to Formula 1 2014.
Well, that's enough F1 for me today. What is up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. I'm going to hit you guys with the nostalgia feels in today's one. We are taking a look at all the F1 games made by Codemasters, excluding F1 2009, because in my opinion that one don't really count. So we're looking at the evolution of the F1 games from 2010 to 2020, and I'm going to provide a little bit of my thoughts over the course of all the laps. We will be comparing the McLaren F1 car at Monaco. Bearing in mind, just don't expect any lap records, okay? A lot of these laps were done on the pad and were quite shocking. So, without further ado, let's get into it and compare all the F1 games by Codemasters. So this is F1 2010 then, and for many of us, the introduction to the Codemasters F1 series. And this game has so much nostalgia for me. The audio, I guess, isn't the best, but what's so nostalgic about this game is the graphics and the soundtrack and the whole general feel of the game. One thing that you might be able to tell is the car handles quite well in comparison to F1 2020 at low speed. The car really turns in rather well. However, at high speed, there's just absolutely no downforce. So the handling is very stiff. There's a lot of auto spin curves all around the place, and overall, it's very, very punishing, I would say, is this game if you drive in the wrong way. But I don't want to talk over the complete lap. I just want to talk over about half the lap over most of these laps. So enjoy the rest of it. So here we are then for what is the wild child of the F1 game franchise. This is F1 2011, the second iteration on the console. And yeah, you can tell right away that everything is just toned up to 11. This is the polar opposite of F1 2010. You can absolutely throw the car into corners. Low speed rotation here at lows is actually a lot harder than F1 2010. That's one thing. But overall, the cars are so much faster at high speed, you can really throw them in. The wheel is a lot faster on this game because it's lock-to-lock steering. There's no such thing as steering wheel slip angles. What else? This is the first year that DRS and KERS got introduced. Slipstream was massively OP on this game, so there'd be massive DRS trains and such. Online was a bit of a mess on this game. You can see changing of direction on the controller was horrific. and that was the biggest takeaway I got from this lap. Here we are for F1 2012, and one thing I like straight away is the engine tone, specifically the upshift. So there's just a nice thud as you upshift and downshift through the gears. On this game, you couldn't spam up and down the gears as much as you could on F1 2011, so that was nice. Online was a lot better on this game as opposed to F1 2011. Career mode was still really good. I still maintain that this game has the best menus and soundtrack of just about any other F1 game. I love the intro sequence for this game. That's why I use it in a lot of my videos today. But I think this was probably one of the best years for career mode of the old gen, and then it started to go down a little bit after F1 2013 onwards. But F1 2012, very polished game, very fun. We had the likes of scenario modes and such, which was a nice addition, as well as online ranks, which definitely kept the online player base very happy. F1 2013 now, and this game has a pretty similar feel to what F1 2012 did. However, the high-speed nature of the handling was improved that little bit better. The cars were nice and flowing, and to be honest, this game had head and shoulders the best handling model out of any of the old-gen F1 games by a mile. This was the year they introduced classic cars, classic tracks as well, and overall this was, I think, probably the best game of the old generation franchise, that being on the old consoles, Xbox 360, PS3, etc. But this was the last of a dying breed. We'll head into F1 2014 next, and that was a game which was not fun. But regardless, F1 2013, still one of my favorites to date. Let me know what yours is down in the comments. A little bit sketchy into turn 1. Here we are for F1 2014, and this is probably one of the worst F1 games ever made. This was the first year that went into the new regulation change for the turbo hybrid era. This was a very bare bones game. This was the last one on old gen, and career mode, there wasn't much to it, to be honest. The menus were absolutely horrific. I'm going to do a video that goes a lot more in depth about the F1 game, so stay tuned about that. But in today's video, I just want to touch upon things very briefly. But yeah, the downforce and the real life counterparts got stripped back a lot, so high speed didn't feel as satisfying, and a lot of the time it just felt really awkward to get this car out of traction zones. You had to use first gear a lot to rotate the car, and it was not a fun game. I think this was the year of the pad, using Mario Kart techniques to rotate the car and such. Locking up sounded like chickens. It was a very weird year for Formula One games. F1 2015 sees us transition into the McLaren Honda era, as well as being the first F1 game on the new generation of consoles, that being Xbox One and PS4, and as such we had a revamped handling model, but in order to facilitate that, a lot of features got stripped back for this year's game. You might remember that this was the year where there was absolutely no career mode game mode. It was just season mode or something like that, and then there was Pro Season, which was play out a season in the F1 game, and then start over again, and that's your F1 game. It was a real mess from a content creation standpoint of things. I don't think online was the best here either. Online hoppers were a thing for Xbox, and custom lobbies. Oh, it's just a bit of a mess, but at least the game sounded and handled really well. That's about all I could say for F1 2015. Here we are now for F1 2016, and this was the first game, the first step in the right direction for Codemasters. They brought back career mode and brought it back in a bigger and better way. This was the first year where we could implement R&D upgrades, so Friday practice programs. This was the year where I started off in the manor and upgraded it to the point where it was challenging the likes of Ferrari and Mercedes to win Constructors and Drivers World Championships. It was a good game. They further refined things over the handling model and started to add in features again. In F1 2015, they took away the safety car, but I believe it came back for this year's game. Thank goodness. But one omission, and one that's still missing to this day, was the red flags. That has not been seen ever since the old gen of F1 games. 2016 was a good game, a step in the right direction, and it laid the platform down for the F1 games that we have today. F1 2017 now, and you might notice the look of the car is a lot different now. Much wider tyres, wider car. The regulation change in 2017 facilitated that. And as such, the cars were a lot faster in this year's game. Codemasters once again doubled down on their efforts in career mode by introducing the invitational events. And to go with that, it meant that we had classic cars back in the F1 game franchise once again. So that was really cool to have that back. We had an extra few characters introduced into the F1 games around this time. 2016 saw the introduction of Emma, our agent, and then in this year's game we got the introduction of the R&D guy and also the guy who owned all of the classic cars that we drove in the invitational events. The R&D tree was introduced for the first time this year. It was massively expanded upon from the R&D system from 2016, and finally, just to touch on things, I think this game was very buggy at the start of its life cycle, but thankfully, they sorted it all out. Make headlines in F1 2018. That was the slogan that was going around everywhere in all of the press pieces for this game. Showmanship versus sportsmanship, but more importantly, this was the introduction of the ERS, which we kind of still have today. So that was pretty cool. As well as that, this game saw the introduction of the ranked game mode, which I really appreciate, so online players rejoice. Otherwise, pretty similar game to F1 2017. This was a very oversteery handling model, especially if you loaded up a time trial setup with, say, 11 ballast. The cars were more akin to like shopping carts sliding around if you watch any kind of F1 esports gameplay. But apart from that, they just refined upon what they had already with career mode, with the handling, etc., the sound. Paul Ricard was introduced into this game for the first time, and that was really the only other new addition for this game. And so here we are now for F1 2019. It feels like only yesterday we were playing this, sweating it out not long ago, doing career modes and such. This was a big step up for the F1 game franchise. This saw the introduction of a story mode. Devin Butler, Lucas Weber, Formula 2, graduating into Formula 1. This year also saw the introduction of driver transfers in career mode, which has been absolutely massive. This was a keystone game in the F1 game franchise, and one we'll look back on in many years to come with a lot of happiness, I would say, for sure. As well as that, this game saw the introduction of multiplayer cars, being able to pick your own livery and such, driver suits. Helmet customization was a little bit better, but it's still not perfect. The sound was overhauled and sounds way better than previous games. And the graphics at night look so good. And this now leaves us with the most modern iteration of the F1 games that we have of me making this video now, F1 2020. This is another big step in the right direction for Codemasters. This saw the introduction of my team, the ability to create, own, run your own Formula 1 team and carry them to glory, to win a Constructors' Championship. Handling feels a lot better at high speed on this year's game. Low speed is a little bit more understeery, but if you load a setup, you can go way faster at lower speed. It's actually quite ridiculous. I haven't played too much of online just yet. That's something I'll need to do in the future. I don't even feel ready to make a review on this game despite playing it for a good month or two, but I know already that this game is a very, very good one. AI still at this stage is very, very weak, and the progression of the AI-based teams in career mode needs to be looked at, because there just needs to be some rebalancing there. The progression between Season 1, which is fine, then heading into Season 2 is way out of balance. It takes not much time at all to be a top team in Formula 1 in Season 2. But other than that, the game is pretty solid, I would say. Good handling, good graphics, good sound. Online, like I said, I think it does have its issues. I have seen a lot of people complaining, etc., but that is normal for an F1 game at release. Normally these things do get worked upon, but you're now just seeing a bonus clip of me driving around at night on F1 2020 as well. Let me know what you thought about everything I've said in this video. Of course, I couldn't go into much detail, so there are a lot of things that I missed out from previous F1 games, so feel free to let me know what I missed down in the comments, and I'll make a more detailed review of all the F1 games in a future video, going through menus, going through career mode, B-roll, and just more stuff that is different to just the raw gameplay. But I hope you like the, the transition of where we started to where we are now, not only with the F1 game itself, with Monaco, with McLaren. All three combos have gone through a whole wreath of changes, and it's really cool to see the roller coaster ride that has been the F1 game franchise. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to see plenty more racing game content. And I'll see you guys for a brand new video very soon.